Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. I'm a 28-year-old dude, and my wife, Shannon, is 23. We've been together for a solid 3.5 years, and let me tell you, it's been quite the journey. At first, we were inseparable. You know how it is when you first meet someone and you just can't get enough of each other. Yeah, that was us. Throughout our relationship, we had toxic fights, often triggered by Shannon's intense jealousy and my avoidant behavior. Her insecurities led to frequent accusations of infidelity over trivial incidents. One time we were at a restaurant, and I looked 4 times at the waitress. I just looked at her for no particular reason. I wasn't attracted or anything like that. She screamed and accused me of wanting to cheat her. She did this nearly every time we went out in public together. Basically, I was not allowed to meet any women in my life because she would freak out. Early in our marriage, I was broke. I was trying to make a name for myself with my business, but money was tight. Shannon, though, she came from a wealthy background, and that difference created its own set of problems. She wanted all these fancy gifts, expensive vacations, you name it. My wallet wasn't exactly ready for that, and her complaints about my poor mindset only added fuel to the fire. I was feeling stuck, depressed, broke, and just not in a good place. That's when I decided to give therapy a shot. The therapist told me I needed to be more present, show more affection, and basically make Shannon feel like a queen. I tried, I really did, but I wasn't consistent enough. In the last 12 months, my business started booming, and suddenly I could afford to spoil Shannon with all the things she desired. Expensive vacations? Check. Fancy purses and jewelry? Double check. But here's where it gets complicated. My work took up most of my time, and when I came home, I just wanted to unwind for a couple hours alone and play video games. Shannon absolutely hated when I played games, even for just an hour or two. She felt neglected, unimportant, and worst of all, unattracted to me. She threatened to leave me if I didn't get rid of my games. Then today, Shannon and I had this massive blowout over absolutely nothing. She just flipped out, started yelling at me for some unknown reason, and then stormed out of the house in a fit of rage. Feeling pretty down, I decided to call up my buddy Pete, hoping to vent about the whole mess. Pete, being the awesome friend he is, suggested we grab some lunch and hang out. We hit up this local shopping center with those cool rooftop restaurants. Just as I was starting to feel a bit better, guess what? Pete spots someone that looks a lot like Shannon walking around holding hands with some other guy. Now, I wasn't completely sure because it was from behind and they were far away, but Pete seemed pretty convinced. We decided to tail them just to make sure. We caught up and I saw her face and confirmed that it was definitely my wife, walking around the shops holding hands with some dude I didn't recognize. And if that wasn't bad enough, I watched them kiss while riding down the escalator. I was seething, and Pete, well, he was just as angry as me, maybe even angrier. He had gotten divorced only the year before after he walked in on his wife banging the guy from down the street. This would have all hit too close to home for him. Pete, being the quick thinker he is, told me to grab my phone and film the whole thing. So there I was, phone in hand, capturing my wife, my supposed soulmate, with another guy. I was ready to explode. But then, Pete suddenly ran ahead and tapped her on the shoulder. Shannon knows Pete, and when she realized who had tapped her shoulder, she immediately let go of the other man's hand and took a step away from him. I don't know what Pete said to her, but he pointed in my direction. Shannon saw me and looked shocked. She called out and asked what I was doing there. She had a stupid grin on her face, and her cheeks were bright red from embarrassment, and she kept walking towards me and then back to the other guy, like she didn't know who to go to in this situation. I was still filming, and I started yelling at her. I was about to punch the guy, but stopped myself. I just looked him straight in the eyes and didn't say anything. He avoided my sight and walked away, leaving my wife alone to deal with the situation. Pete was yelling after him, calling him a coward and telling him to keep walking. We were starting to draw a crowd from the other shoppers. The whole time, Shannon was standing there with that stupid grin on her face, but when the other guy ran away from the confrontation, she snapped and suddenly came at me yelling and accusing me of stalking her. She was screaming nonsensical abuse at me and blaming me for driving her to be with someone else. The yelling got so loud that random strangers were coming up to us to try and separate us. There was a huge crowd around us and we were making a scene, but I didn't care. My emotions were off the chart. Eventually, the shopping center security came and Pete and I were escorted off the property. I was really upset, and Pete came back to my house with me and we had a beer together, and he sat and listened while I vented to him. Shannon came home a few hours later and Pete left. We immediately got into arguing again. She says that she's never had sex with him, but I don't believe that's true. Shannon said they met off Tinder and have only met up a couple of times. She said she downloaded the app because I never paid her enough attention to her. I was always working and playing stupid games. I really don't think she's telling me the full truth. Shannon and the other guy looked way more comfortable with each other than two people who've only met a couple of times. I'm starting to think she was causing arguments between us as an excuse to leave the house and meet up with her Tinder dates. I admitted that I didn't know if I wanted to continue our marriage, and immediately Shannon's tone changed. She stopped being so aggressive and confrontational and suddenly began crying and begging me to forgive her. She was clinging to me, telling me she still wants to be with me and that she loves me. What do you guys think? Should I give her another chance or cut ties and move on? This mess all went down today, and I'm seriously at a loss here. Thanks for listening.